So it's exciting to start a new subject. Just see if we're recording. Yeah, we're recording. Good. And so far, we returned some of the bechinas, and Mirz Hashem will be getting the rest of them in soon. Baruch Hashem is a lot of work because everybody wrote a lot, so it's good. So, but so far, Baruch Hashem been very happy, and I'm really steig last time, and that really great. So Mirz Hashem will keep on steiging, and we'll do great with this new subject as well. So we're starting Amir La'akum, Be'ezer Hashem. It's a very deep and very, it needs a lot of yagia, a lot of understanding, a lot of hard work, but the payros are very great because it's a very bigger, it's very geschmack and very negel maisa, very negel maisa. Probably a very high percentage of shilas you get asked in halacha, or Rav asked, or especially I can imagine like in an NCSY Shabbaton or different situations like that where there's constant shilas of Amir La'akum coming up. And as a matter of fact, I've been emergency asked questions from right before like Shabbos from NCSY, major Shabbatons has been called up. Things broke down, the air conditioning's off and this and that, different than the food is off, and what do we do for food for the kids, or air conditioning or heat or whatever. Like these things come up all the time. Is what can we ask the goyim? What can we not ask the goyim? And not always is there a phone number to ask. Sometimes it's after Shabbos started already. It comes up. So it's a very important mitzvah to have on your fingertips that you should be able to ask yourself and know the answer. So it's going to be very negel l'maaseh, Mirz Hashem. So when it comes to this sugya, there are three areas, we'll say three overall areas, and within them many areas, but the three overall, we'll say, called subjects within Amir La'akum. In the first, in the overall general scheme of Amir La'akum, one is the actual Isser Amira, the Isser of telling him to do or asking him to do a malacha on Shabbos or Yom Tov. So that's the direct interaction with the goy, asking him to do something on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Then the second thing is the Isser Hana of being nene from what the goy did for you on Yom Tov or Shabbos. So whether you asked him or not, but then there's a separate question of if he did it for you, are you allowed to go ahead and benefit from what he did for you for the sake of a Jew? And the third shaila is going to be a different isurim of maras ayin, or things that look like goy were doing things for you. A whole separate subject on its own right. And what we're going to be focusing on now is first on this sugya, which is the first sugya of Amir La'akum, is the sugya of the Isser Hana. We're not getting into the actual Isser Amira yet. That's going to be later on. It's going to be previous other different sugyas, but the place to start over here really is to get into the amkus of really the crux of what Chazal asred, what a Chazal do, what a Chazal say is going to be in this shaila here of the Isser Hana. So that starts our mission. Kuf Chaf Beis Nachar Shehidlik Es Haner Mishtamish La'oro Yisrael. A goy that lights a ner, then there is no Isser Hana when he did it for himself, and a yid is therefore allowed to be Mishtamish La'oro. Be Mishvil Yisrael, but if he did it for the sake of the Yisrael, also. So here we're seeing this concept of Isser Hana. L'chora looks like an Isser Hana. At least we're not allowed to be nene from what he did. How we're going to be magdir that, what that's called exactly, we'll see as we go along. Mile mayim lashkas behemto mashgach Yisrael. If you filled up water to feed to water his animal, then Yisrael afterwards can use it because he did it for the sake of himself, not for the yid. Mishvil Yisrael aser. Nachri kevish leirid boy. So he made a platform. He made a ramp when the ship arrived and the docked on Shabbos, and there's yidden on board, and the goy makes a ramp to be able to get down on Shabbos. Yored Achav Yisrael, then we can go afterwards because he made it for himself. Yishvil Yisrael also, and then we bring the Maisa, bring the Gamliel, this Canaan, Shayoboyim, the Sfina, Vasa Noche Kevish Lerid Boy, Yardu, Ramgalev, this Canaan. Okay, so we have an actual Maisa there, which the Gemara says later on. We brought one of the reasons we brought this case all together was because we have a Maisa to illustrate it, which makes it more bona fide when you have an actual Maisa, La Halacha. So now we're going to start taking a look at Tosfos over here. And Tosfos is going to open up the door, open up the window, we'll say, for two different levels of understanding of this Gzera, what's going on over here. So Tosfos says, Tosfos has a kasha, that Mishtamish Yisrael Ora, if a goy makes it for himself, then a Jew is allowed to be Mishtamish with that or. There's no Isra Hana on that or because he did it for himself. So it says, V'logas Rinan Shema Yadlik, Kedegas Rinan Birakam de Beitza. This Tosfos and all the Rishonim ask why it's not a stira between our Mishnah and the Sugi in the beginning of Beitza, that over there we have Paris and Noshrim. If you go under a tree, the fruits that fall from the tree on Yom Tov are usher to be netted from those fruits. Shema Yalav Yitlosh, because you might go up and you might, if you eat that apple that fell and you might really enjoy it, you might pull another apple off and eat that as well. So Paris and Noshrim are usher because Shema Yalav Yitlosh. Mashkin Shazavu Shema Yischot, and also if you have, let's say Meikra Din Zaysin Vanavim, if it's grapes or olives, bidaraisa is an isra schita and other things that are banan. We'll stick with the daraisa now because it gets more complicated. But if you have mashkim that you have a lot of zaysin or a lot of anavim, a lot of grapes, and there's grape juice that because of the weight of the grapes, now you have a lot of grape juice there that squeeze that on its own. You're not allowed to drink that because shema yischot, because you might squeeze some more grapes. So why is this different? That if a goy lit a fire, lit a candle, that you are allowed to be netted from it. So why are we not gozer here by what a goy did, like we are gozer over there if it happened on its own? Because klape the Maisa Yisrael, what the goy did for himself, it's kilo it happened on its own. There's no Maisa that was the Yisrael did over here. So as far as Yisrael is concerned, if a goy did it for himself, then it's as if like the apple fell on its own or the grape juice was made on its own. I still can't get up and do it. So what the goy did, it's like it happened on its own for klape him. So why is that different? So Tosfos says, Mishum deschita v'tlisha him kalim lasos v'adam lohu tachreim. Tosfos combines two swords over here. He says that schita and tlisha, squeezing out more grapes or pulling off another apple, is very simple to do. It doesn't take a lot of effort, and the adam lo tachreim, and a person they taste good. Like you taste a good geschmack fresh grape juice. You want to squeeze a little bit more. Or if it's a good geschmack apple, you might pull another one off. So you'll forget. You'll get involved in what you're doing. You'll get so excited about it, you'll forget, and it's so easy to do. You'll pull it off, or you'll squeeze it. It's low tachreim because it's food, and it's food people enjoy, so they run after food. Both things together combined, you don't have over here. You don't have by lighting a fire. It's more, especially then, but it's more complicated to light a fire than it is to pull off an apple. It's not so kal lasos. And also you don't have the other loads for that. You're not loads after having more light. Kishmaka light. I want more light. So it's not the same as food. It's interesting that the Mordechai, put it in the Marmakomos, that the Mordechai actually splits this into two separate terutzim. Mordechai is in Daf Ayin Vav and most Gemoras in the very back in Siman Taf Gimel. So he says, "Ve'en lahakshos Tosfos kasha ma'ishnam mashkin shezavu perish anoshrim da'asurim shema yischot shema yitlosh." Same kasha. Why is it here different than the Gemara in Beitza? Yeshlomar says the Mordechai, the schitas peres tlishasam kal lasos yisharis lemechlinu avid lehu midkar. He says that peres are so easy to pull off that if you're allowed to eat the ones that are under the tree, you might come to just you'll get involved in it, you'll forget, and you'll pull another one off because it's so easy to do. The fizah perish, according to this pshat, nachri shebishel basar la'atzmai or dagim or beitzim or afa lechem la'atzmai mutar liyisrael lechal mehem. If a goy will bake for himself a cake or bread or a cooked fish or whatever in a way that it's kosher, that it's still kosher for however that is, that Yisrael had there was a fire from Yisrael or whatever. Then there was a kal lasos, those things will be like a goy that lit fire or made a kevesh or filled up water. Those are all, you're allowed to be nana for them because they're not kal lasos. You're not going to quickly come and do it yourself. So even though it's food and it's lo tachreim, it's all totally just in whether it's kal or not, according to this teretz of the Mordechai. So basically, Mordechai is splitting up the two yisodos of Tosas. Tosas is saying that you need two things. You need tartu l'reyosa for it to be usher. You need tartu l'reyosa. You need, number one, it's kal lasos. Number two, it's lohu tachreim, that it's food and you desire it and you'll forget because you're so hungry or you want it. The Mordechai is splitting those two tartu l'reyosa into two separate terutzim. So one teretz is that it's totally in kal lasos. And therefore, even if it's food, if it's not kal lasos, it's not going to be usher. V'od yesh l'taretz, says Mordechai, a second teretz, the midi d'achila dafka asrinan, afila nasa memela, on peiros hanoshrim and mashke zavu. We ask for things that are food, because those are things that, like peiros and like mashkin. Ava midi achina loy gazrinan, even lo nasa v'shil Yisrael, kamo nera v'kevesh v'lemayim. So the reason that never kevesh and nera, the things are mutter, is because they're not food. That's why they're okay. L'zeh perish, according to the Nafkamina, says Mordechai, and according to this shot, Nachrish bisha la'atzmoi or afa pas la'atzmoi also the Yisrael lechol mimenu. Since there's only a tanai of midi dachila and not a tanai of kal lasos, so then pas but even though they're difficult to make it, since it is food, then it's still going to be usher.
So what's the reason of food being usher then? What's the hezbollah behind it? Kal, I understand.
Because of the lahitus, because that's for of you desire food and you get into it, you get involved in eating, then you're going to forget. You forget that it's Shabbos. You'll get involved in food, and that's like we know people do. They get involved in food, and that's it. They forget everything else. So the Mordechai basically is saying that this is going to be the nafkamina between these two terutzim, and it's separated into terutzim. But our Tosfos is not separated into two terutzim; it's all one teretz. You put all together. That Tosfos is requiring tartu l'reyosa to make it usher. So according to Tosfos, both cases are mutter. I mean, we understand. I mean, our Mishnah already tells us that the ne'er of a kevish and everything is mutter. But according to Tosfos, also if a goy bakes something or cooks something, or whatever, that's not a problem of bishalakum for whatever reason, then it's gonna be mutter because it's missing the tanai of kal lasos. You need both tanaim according to our Tosfos. So that's a major nafkamina between Mordechai and Tosfos. It's interesting that Tosfos at Beitza, they're asked the same kasha as well in Daf Gimel over there, and he only answers the answer of kal lasos. He doesn't mention at all the fact that it's food and it's lahu tachreim. So according to Tosfos and Beitza, he's just deciding, like that one side of the Mordechai l'chora, that it's all totally on whether or not it's kal lasos, and therefore the baked food and everything like that will be mutter because it's difficult to do it. In
the beginning of the
three shitas. Sorry.
In the beginning of the teretz of the Mordechai, he explains that it is when it comes to food, it isn't a problem. Meaning the first half of the teretz, the Mordechai. Am I understanding that correctly, or?
It's not totally on food. It's totally on whether it's kal or not, whether it's easy or hard.
Meaning if it's not kal and it's food.
Even if it's food, it's not kal. So that's basically how Tosfos in Beitza is going, like that teretz of the Mordechai. That's all totally in kal or not.
And what would the Mordechai hold in terms of bishalakum and?
Oh, so we'll just have to just cancel that out. For whatever reason, it's not bishalakum. It was lit by Yisrael, or it's for whatever that part of it out. That shouldn't be bishalakum. There's the Yisrael there. It's in the house. He's like all the teretz, and we learned bishalakum. It's right. He's an Evid, or he's working for the Yisrael, according to the Ravid. But we have, et cetera, et cetera. We'll just cancel that out of the equation.
Also, Mistama, there's other things with food that aren't bishul, like they could be pas or picking stuff off a tree or something like that. That could be that could not have an issue of bishalakum.
Right. There's just the nafkamina of the Mordechai speaking out of what happens if a goy does cook something which takes effort.
Right.
Canceling out bishalakum. Is there a problem of Shabbos? A problem of
Right. Right. Okay. So I guess pas would be like one. Okay. But anyways, yeah, it could be.
Right. That's what the Mordechai speaks out as a nafkamina. So I'm just saying that according to our Tosfos, there isn't. Both nafkaminas are not true. They're both going to be mutter because you need tartzel l'reisa. You need both factors to make it usher. And according to the Tosfos and Beitza, it goes like the first teretz of the Mordechai, that it's all tully in whether it's kal lasos or not. So I haven't really worked on that la'alacha yet, but just to understand that. So that's just a prat here in Tosfos, but it's going to be in a get to the next Tosfos as well. That I just wanted to sort of like look at the overall view of these two Tosfos in, because they're really being megala to us, I think, two worlds in Amir al-Akum. So yeah, we'll take it take a look at the next Tosfos. Tosfos says that if it was for the sake of Yisrael, it's usher. Says nira de usher lekol Yisrael. The dafka v'chutz l'tchum derabanan. We say there's a chilek only by derabbanans, which they're trying to discuss whether it's all derabbanans or just that derabanan of tchum, because tchum is more kal. Well, let's just assume Tosfos is learning that it's all derabbanans are going to be only usher if a goy does it for Yisrael. If it's only an isser derabanan, there's going to also be usher for that Yisrael he did it for, the mutter for other Yisraelim. Mashenkin and isser deraisa, like over here, like lighting a fire or making a kevesh, or these are all the Yisraelim deraisa. So it's usher lakol. It's usher for kol Yisrael. On that Tosfos asks Akasha, if that's so, basically we're saying that that's like an Isser Hana. Like nobody can be nene from what the goy did. If he performed an Isser Deraisa for the sake of any Yisrael, then it becomes like an Isser Hana. Nobody can be nene from that on Shabbos. Nobody can, at least during Shabbos, the getter of the Isser seems to be like an Isser Hana. On that Tosfos asks Akasha, if that's so, if every Isser Deraisa is Asr B'Nah, because we can't be nene from Melechas Shabbos, from any Malacha that was done in Shabbos, and no Yisrael can be nene from that. If so, then how is it that we paskin like Rav Meir? Rav Meir says that here Afgav to Yisrael Mavashal b'Shabbos b'Shogeg Yochal. So that's a three-way machlokas tanoim in Baba Kama and Chulin. But the third shita the Tosfos is quoting here is Rav Meir that Maker Din, or the Shulchan Aruch passing like Rav Yehuda, the Gra says it passes like Rav Meir. Tosfos is asking for Rav Meir that holds that if you're mavashal b'Shabbos b'Shogeg, you accidentally forgot that it's Shabbos and you cooked delicious scrambled eggs from the morning. You know, you want to serve your wife breakfast in bed. You got up and all excited, and then you brought it in and said, look what I made for you, this scrambled eggs. She said, honey, it's Shabbos. I can't believe it. I thought it was Sunday, whatever. So I didn't daven yet. I forgot. Now what? So can she eat the eggs or not? So he completely forgot. Can she eat the eggs? Can he still serve her breakfast in bed? Answer is, Rameir Paskins, yes. That Mvasha Shabbos B'Shogeg Yochal. So Shabbos is why? If there's an issue to be nana from any Melechas Shabbos, Tosfos, then like we see by any deraisa, this is certainly a deraisa over here by Mvashal B'Shogeg B'Shabbos. How can you be nana from that food on Shabbos? Because we paskin that you can be. It's a huge nafkamina l'gabe tinuk shenishba. We're going through it now. We spoke about this back in the day when we learned Bishul the first time around by Richos about shilos of non-from people that buy stuff for you on Shabbos and they show up for your Shabbos meal and they went and said, look, this bottle of wine, I just bought it on the way, on Shabbos morning or something, and can you be netted from there or not? So we're not going to all that again right now, but the Maisa in our sugya, if there's an issue to be nene from Lecha Shabbos deraisa over here, how can we paskin Vashem Shabbos Shogeg Yochel? So Tosfos answers that there's a huge chilek between a Yisrael she'asa b'shogeg and a Nachri that did it for the sake of a Yisrael. That by a Yid that did it b'shogeg, he did it b'shogeg, he would never do it b'mezid. We're not choshesh that if I can eat this food now. If you can serve those eggs to your wife now, she'll say, okay, once you're at it, honey, can you go and cook up this or cook up that? Once you know it's Shabbos, it's Shabbos. You're not going to ask a Jew to perform a malacha deraisa on Shabbos. Mashen can a goy that it's kal, it's only nisur d'Rabbanan. If I could be nene from what he did for me, he performed something. He did something for me. For me, he lit a fire. For me, he whatever else over here we did. Then, and I can be nene from that. Then I might turn around and ask him also to be nene to do more things for me because it's more kal be'enai. So that's why Chazal made it that you can't be nene from it at all, and not only him, but Kol Yisrael. Because I guess Tosfos must be holding that just like we're worried that if this guy did it for he lit a fire for Reuven. Okay, so now Shimon comes along and once he already did it for Reuven, so then Tosfos is worried that Shimon also will ask him, because once he's already doing it for Jews, then other Jews will ask him as well. We're not machal between this Jew and that Jew, which is actually a machlokes Shon we'll speak about it when we further on. But there is a Balamor, the Shittas of the Balamor, the Razah in Beitza, and the Sagi in Beitza and Chavdalad, and the Ran, and one lashon of the Ran over here, but he's referring to that Razah, is that even by deraisas, it's only also for that Yisrael that it was made for, that it was done for. He obviously holds that we're only choshesh that one that the malacha was done for, that once this guy did a malacha for me, then I already see he's open to doing malachas for me, then I'll also go and, even though I didn't ask him to begin with, but he did it for me, then I can ask him to do more things. I see he's open to do malachas for me. But mechatesi, that Shimon over there, he's going to do things just as he did for me, mechatesi, he's going to do it for him. So the Balamor holds that it's only also for the one who was done for. Only by him is there gzera, not by anybody else. That's a
even though we have like a Mishnah that'll say that certain things are usher forever for all Jews. What are they going to do with those those Mishnayos?
You have to know what cases you're
with burying a Jew or with a guy that dug a grave, right? The Mishnah over there says usher forever for all Jews.
Yeah, so that's a very good question. The Rishonim asked that question, and they say that it's different because a kever was dug on Shabbos has a kol, and it's a bizayon for, if it's like everyone knows forever that was dug on Shabbos be'isser, so it's a bizayon for the person to be buried in that. So there's like sometimes there's separate reasons for these things, but like a kever, which is a davar mefursam, and everyone knows about it, and it becomes a bizayon. So it's not an isser b'etzem, it's because of the bizayon ames and because of the possible chil Hashem from that by the davar mefursam. So there might be, that's I mentioned before, there's certain things that are also mitzad marasayin, even though they're not, or other sides for us besides the etzem isser itself. But your question, the Ran, I believe, or I saw one of the Rishonim ask that question. So you're in good company. Okay, so and Tosfos goes on to at the end to say to qualify this, to say that this is different. He has one final kasha that we have a sugya before in the previous daf, that if there's a fire going on in somebody's house and a goy comes to put it out, then you don't have to stop him. You're allowed to let him just keep on going ahead and doing it, and you're benefiting from what he did. Once the fire goes out, you're allowed to go into the house that now is still a house because he put it out. You can be ended from that. And why is that so? It's if kibui is an issa deraisa, putting out a fire is an issa deraisa on Shabbos. So how could I be nene from his ma'asim? So Tosfos says a chiluk that the isser that Chazal said to be nene from it is only if you're nene from the goof hamalacha that he did, the goof of ma'aser. Like he lit a fire, so you're being nene right now from that fire as you're reading your sefer or your whatever, you're being nene from that fire. Mashenkin the kibui, which is he says, we'll go more into this, but he says that with the svara of the Gemara that it said that Nachri did it, a daita nafshe did it for his own sake. He did it on his own das, not on your das. Said kibui kiyotzabosh ein Yisrael nene mi ma'isa hanachri. Aval hachash a guf Yisrael nene ma'isa shel nachri. The guf ha Yisrael, the person himself is actually actively being nene from what he did. So lo amrina that then afshei kavid ho v'nochim is kavan lanaso. Then on that we don't say since the goy had kavana for the sake for the toilets of the Jew, then we don't consider that did an afshei. That's the Swartz Tosus. Precisely what Tosus means by that, we're not going to talk about in this year. Mr. Shem, the next year, go into a little more deeply what Tosus means by that, because I think there's more than meets the eye to that chiluk between here and kibui. But we're right now. I just want to focus on one point over here: is that after we take now an overview of these two Tosusin, so it paints us a picture that we see there are really two separate gzeras going on over here between Nene from what a goy did on Shabbos for us. There's one Isser, there's one Shiloh or Chash or Gzera, which is that if I'm Nene from what he did, then I might come to do a malacha myself. It's something that I might come to do. That's the first Tosus. And the Shiloh is, when is that so? When might I do it? Whether it's Italian and that it's food and I might forget myself, forget and come and do it, pull it off, whatever, or it's something that's just easy to do, so I might come and do it also, if it's what he did for me, if I nend from it. So it's all about me. It's all about me, the Jew, that I'm going to get up and do something myself on Shabbos, and that's the time of the Gzera. That's one overall Gzera. Then you have a second Gzera, which the second Tosus is talking about, which is that if I'm nended from what a goy does, then I might ask a goy to do more for me. If I'm nene from Melechas Goy, then that's a nichlal and Isra of Mir La'akum, then I might come to do it. And so the first Tosus, the first Gzera is not exactly really Mir La'akum, it's just anything that I'm nene from that was produced on Shabbos through a malacha or through something which I couldn't do on Shabbos. It's not, I wouldn't exactly call that a Mir La'akum because Paris and Noshrim has nothing to do with a Mir La'akum. It's just there was Paris that were Mechuber, now they're not Mechuber. And to get more Paris, I have to be over the Isser of Flisha of Mechuber, which is a Malacha D'Oraisa. So those are Gzeras that are independent of Emir La'akum, and a Goya is just one more way of producing food that, besides a tree, fruit falling off a tree, or grape juice getting squeezed out of grapes on its own right. So it could also come through a Goy, and that's an Isser on me. That's an Isser on that I'm cautious that I'll be Mechal Shabbos if I nender from it. And there's a whole separate Gzera, which is very interesting, that the goy that does a malacha for me, so I can't ask him to do more. I can't be nene from him because I might ask him to do more, even though it's all d'rabbanans. It seems like a Gzera, almost like it's an Isser d'rabbanan to be nene. And now on top of that, there's another Isser d'rabbanan that I might ask him to do another malacha, which would be d'rabbanan because it's goy doing it. There's no real Chil Shabbos d'Oraisa going on over here. Just Tosus Mechalik in Malachos D'Oraisa. I can't be nene from a malacha which is batzmuso, bamahuso in its essence in Malacha D'Oraisa done by a goy. But we're really dealing in all d'rabbanans that are actually happening is all d'rabbanans from the viewpoint of actual halacha. But the Gzera over here is not what I might come to do it, but it's all about what I might ask a goy to do. Right? And the Rashba over here, really, the last point I brought up, it's one d'rabbanan to another, which sounds almost like Gzera. So the Rashba says, Kul echad Gzera, it's all one Gzera. When Chazal assered it, they assered it combined with not being nene for when he did, and they don't want you to ask him to do things. That's all one big Gzera. It's all not Gzera to a Gzera, but one big Gzera. Now so is that clear? So we'll just go on from there. Right. So now, that's what we take out of these two, just from the outside of these two tests, and that we have two separate Gzeras going on over here. And the second Gzera is really the etzem yisod of the Gzera of Mir La'akum, that I shouldn't be nended from it, so I shouldn't ask him again. Now the Marsha asks an important question over here, which is sort of a Pesach. Did I mention the Marsha to look at? Okay. So the Marsha makes a cheshbon over here and asks an interesting question. He asks that Tosus asks on himself. Tosus wants to say Yisod that any Yisod D'Oraisa that's done by a goy, then I can't be nended from it. Not only me, but any Jew can't be nended from it. So on that, Tosus asks a kasha, what about Mavashal b'Shabbos b'Shogeg, which is not a goy doing it. That's really stepping into a whole other sugya, stepping into the sugya. It's leaving our sugya and stepping into the sugya of a Judas Mavashal B'Shogeg. That's a whole other world, whole other sugya of Shini Ches. We learned a couple of years ago. So why couldn't Tosfos ask a better question right here on the spot? That that according to the he really sort of separates out the Mordechai from Tosfos. It says that there could be cases where even if a goy does it, let's say according to the teretz of this Talian food, it's Talian lohut achrayim, then we can find malachas deraisa that that if it's let's say if it's let's say Tosfos is tartula. We said tartula reya, so you need to have 2 tanaim to make it usher. So it could be an issur deraisa that a goy does. Let's say they bake for you, but it's still going to be mutter according to Tosfos. It's still going to be mutter, even though it's a malacha deraisa, because it's missing the tanai of kal lasos. So we already have right within our sugya itself, we have the malachas deraisa that are still going to be mutter and banana from it. So why do you have to jump over to a whole other sugya of a mayor? Just ask it when it's sugya minei beit. You saying a klal, we see here a klal that any yisur deraisa is also the kol Yisrael. What about that? What about goyim that bake a cake on Shabbos that should be mutter because it's not kal lasos? That's a kasha on the Marsha. So it's almost a rhetorical question. Once you hear the answer, then once the Marsha gives his answer, you think, well, what was he even really asking? It sounds a little bit almost like a rhetorical question. But the answer, it says, is that clearly the Tosfos that said this chilukim of lohut achrayim and kal lasos, those are chilukim within when the goy performed the malacha not for the sake of Yisrael, for the sake of himself. When he does it for himself, then it's tantamount to the apple falling by itself off the tree. The goy just did it. Now it's just there. It had no relation to a Yisrael at all. So now the question is, if I'm nene from it, will I go and do that same thing myself? So that there you have the chilukim between lahut or not, food or not, or kal or lasos, etc. Mashenkin over here, we're not talking about the goy did it for himself. We're talking about bishvil Yisrael. When a goy does it bishvil Yisrael, then certainly it's usher behind, it's to be nene from it. Even regardless if it's easy to do or it's food or not. Any malacha deraisa it does for a Jew, that's a whole different parsha when it's bishvil Yisrael. That's where there's now the whole new Israel Amir Akum and the Israel Noah for what it does for us that kicks in. So it's a whole nother sugya. So basically the Marsha is really just sort of bringing out what Tosfos is telling us, that those chilukim don't apply at all. The kasha really is not a kasha. That's why Tosfos, to talk about the Isra Noah Achar Maisa, the only parallel to that would be another case where Yisrael did a malacha b'shogeg and did a real Isra malacha, and there now we have the shaila of whether we're choshesh you're going to go and ask somebody else to do it again or not. That would be the only parallel. There's no parallel to the chilukim before, because they have nothing to do with this sugya. They have nothing to do with when a goy does it b'shvil Yisrael. So we have two separate things going on in our Mishnah. We have Nachash Shehidlik is an error la'atzmoi, and Nachash Shehidlik is an error Yisrael, and it's two different worlds. One has these gzeras and one doesn't have this gzera of asur l'kol. So those are the sod of the Isra Noah that we're talking about.
Can I ask a question on the Marsha? Maybe I misunderstood something. Isn't there still the issue of a guy doing it for himself? You might come to ask again, versus a hamavashal b'shogeg, a Jew would never do b'mezid. Right? Isn't there still that issue, or is there never a concern? A guy doing it for himself, you'll never come to ask to do it for you. Like there's never going to be that crossover.
Yeah, we don't find that whole. In other words, we don't. When a guy does it for himself, then we don't find this gzera. We don't find this.
No gzera. No. Okay.
There's no such gzera. No. The only chashav would be, would I be worried I'm going to do it myself? And that was the first Tosfos.
Okay.
But as far as Amir La'akum, as we see, no matter what type of isra it is, and what type of thing that he did, we still find, and we still find that it's mutter, except for like if the Mordechai splits it up and says that it's all tali in food, so then if he made food for himself, and I'm nana from it, then it's not necessary because I might ask him to do it. It's also because I might go and bake more myself because I might forget because it's all tali in. So that's all within the realm, within the world of the first tosis. And we get to the world of the second tosis. That's back to the world of Mir La'akum, what I might ask him to do. And I can't be nana from what was done by Nisa Draisa because I might ask him to do more. And not true. Then the Tosis himself asked that if I'm a Vashal B'Shogeg, what about that? So okay, I'm not worried. I'm going to ask a Jew to do more because I would never ask a Jew to do Chal Shabbos, but a Goy I might, or I would. I mean, that's what we're concerned about.
So Marshal's question, he's upset with the why Tosis is bringing in Vashal B'Shogeg, and he's answering that it has nothing to do with this Tosis has nothing to do with the Xeros, and therefore that's the only thing we're worried about is why would this be mutter?
Why would it be mutter ba'ana? Why is it mutter ba'ana? Right.
When it's Nisa Daraisa.
Right, and don't you can't bring in the chilukim of the previous Tosis because those chilukim don't apply.
Those are not to apply because that's when the guy does it for himself.
Right. Okay, so excuse me. Okay, so this basically brings out, I think it just punctuates what we were saying before, that there's two different worlds going on over here. That's basically what their Marsha is saying. That don't make a mistake and equate these two worlds. There's the world of the first Tosis and the world of the second Tosis, which are two separate Xeras and two really different worlds. Okay. Now, yeah, and just to point out that we see from the second Tosis, the way Tosis learns, the only way Chazal saw fit to make it that you're not going to keep on asking Goyim to do things is to make this, create this type of Isser Hana. So, and like we said that the Shita of the Balamor is, Tosis is saying near the Asar the Kol, the Balamor is in Beitza, in one lashon of the Ran over here, it doesn't quote it by name, but over there it speaks about it more in Beitza, holds that it's only Asar to the Yisrael that is done for. So then that's just like it's a side machlokas within this gzera of which, well, first of all, we'll take a look at it two ways. We'll try to look at this two ways. We'll try to clarify that there's two ways to look at this machlokas. It might just be a side machlokas of how far it goes there. In other words, the Balamor is saying Pashas Sfora. If the Goy did a melacha for me, for my sake, Ruvain, so Mechatesi that he'll do something for Shimon. So Mechatesi Shimon would think to ask him to do a melacha as well. So we circumvent the whole problem by just making it Asr Bahana to the one that was done for, was performed for. It's only Asr for Reuven, not Asr for anybody else. Tosis, however, holds that once the Goy is Megala Das that is willing to do malachos for Yisrael, so then we're concerned that other Jews will come along and ask us, oh, he did it for him, he'll do it for me as well. Okay. So it conjures up a lot of different jokes that one won't tell on recording. If a Jew did it for one Jew, then all the other Jews come and get in line, etc. I'm sure you've all heard them. So once he'll do it for him, he'll also do it for me. That you could learn that it's like a balabat shemalchokos like that. It's really just a, there's not really a lumda shemalchokos. It's more a balabat shemalchokos. That once do we say we're only concerned about the one that he did it for, that he's going to ask fighter, or other Jews also once he see it, they might ask as well. So that's the machlokas. It's not really totally in a real, or it might be a very sodistic machlokas between Balamor and Tosis and this prat, that the Balamor might just be looking at the whole thing as purely a gzera. It's a gzera that he did it for you, I might ask. And therefore, it's mistaber to say the gzera should only apply to the one that was done for, because it's a davar rachok to think that someone else is going to ask that. So if in gidere gzeras, in the world of gzeras, then Balamor makes sense. But Tosus might be learning there's not just a dry gzera. It doesn't stay gzera, but the Chazal gave a getter to the gzera that in order to prevent to asking Goyim to go further, they deemed it an Isser Hana. And it's fair to say that it's Asr Hana to one Jew and it's Mutter Ba'ana to another Jew. So once they give it a getter of Isser Hana, then it's mustaber that it applies to everybody. That's another way to possibly look at the machlokas. This Isser Hana that we're talking about, there's a remiss to this. I think an important remiss to this in the Ritva. The Ritva here in the beginning of the Sugya and the Mishnah. So he explains that the tam of the heter, when the goy does it for himself, why is that so? Because he says that there's no such thing as what we call Maisa Shabbos for a goy. When a Jew does a malacha, so we mentioned before the three-way machlokas Tanoim, if a Jew does a malacha b'shogeg on Shabbos, according to Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, he holds that there's a drasha of Kodeshi on Shabbos that Maisa Shabbos becomes Kodesh, becomes for the word separate, that it becomes Asr Midaraisa. So Rabbi Huda and Rav Shimon are Cholek, and they hold that, and Rav Meir are Cholek, and they hold that he Kodesh ve'ein Maaseh Kodesh, because it's Kodesh he Kodesh, Shabbos is Kodesh, and not Maaseh, not as Maisa or Kodesh. Meaning the Maisa Shabbos, if it's Asr, it's only Asr Midrabanan. But there is a concept of Maisa Shabbos, which is Asr Midrabanan. Charles, where does it apply? Does it apply even b'shogeg or only b'mezid, etc.? But there is a concept of Maisa Shabbos, which is Asr. So the Ritva says that there's no such thing as Maisa Shabbos. If a goy does the malacha for you on Shabbos, it's not for himself. I'm sorry. Then there's no Maisa Shabbos by a goy that did la'atzmai. So the Ritva asks that the Torah asered malacha by Eved va'ama. That's an issur deraisa for your Eved or Amma to do malacha for you on Shabbos. There's the shvisa that the Torah commands a Jew also applies to the Eved va'ama. That's an issur, that's a din deraisa. So he says that, it goes on to say that, okay, in a Hanami, that there's an issur deraisa, and Hosifu Chazal are moisif on that issur that there is be'eved v'ama to include also midrabanan every goy that does a malacha for the sake of a Yisrael. Masha Enkin, who did it for himself, then Chazal didn't include that with what the Torah asr eved v'ama. So l'chora the Ritva doesn't make any sense from the Reisha to the Seifa. He starts off asking a kasha of eved v'ama, which sounds like an issur that they should be doing the Maisa malacha for you. And then he turns around and says, well, okay, in a Hanami, they're mosif anything that any goy did for you, even if they're not your Eved V'ama, but they didn't aser if they did it L'Atzma. Like, what's the Shaykhos, the ratio to the Seif is like two different worlds going on over here. But it seems like the Ritva is telling us that the Torah aser Eved V'ama is really, it's extending the Isser that's on the Yisrael for Shabbos to the Eved V'ama. And just like by Yisrael, there's an Isser of Maisa Shabbos. Al Kapanim, it's Shorish as a Remez Deraisa, but the Isser of it remains a Drabanan. So Ad Kama, we see there's such an Isser by Eved V'ama that we extend the Yisrael. So in a sense, we're like extending that Isser of Eved V'ama to any goy that does a malacha for a Jew on Shabbos. And therefore, there's an Isser Anah to them as well. Masha'inkin, he did it Atzma, we never extended it, so therefore there's no Maisa Shabbos. There's no Isra Noah, Maisa Shabbos on what he did for himself. So the Ritva is I think, Megala to us also this Yisod of the Isra Hana of and that's where it's Chaluk, the first Tosos, the second Tosos, the two cases between Asal La'atzmo and Asal L'Yisrael, that by Asal L'Yisrael, then it becomes like the getter Isra Hana, and that's why Tosos holds Asal L'Kol. Mashenke and the Balamor is still going with a lumdus of just a straight gzera, and the gzera makes sense that it applies only to the one that it was done for, not to anybody else. We have to be gozer davar rachok to think that another Jew will say, "Oh, he did it for him; he'll do it for me too." So for the Balamor, only asks it for the one that was done for.
According to the Ritva, would it make a difference if I own the slave, meaning that there's no such thing as him doing it for himself? Because anything my slave does should have me in mind. Would there ever be, meaning, is Ritva saying that if we only will make this chiluk when it's a random guy, then and hopefully he didn't have the Jew in mind. So there we will say that there's no extension there from what the Torah demands, as opposed to if you own the slave.
I was wondering the same thing. That we have to really be mayan into the sugi and kedushin of Maisa Eved V'Ama. Like what's the din? Like if the Eved V'Ama have to be Shabbos and Shabbos, so does that mean that if it's Eved Kanani? Well, I mean, I guess that's the case. Even Eved Kanani, he becomes like Yisrael for certain things. Maybe in a Hanami, maybe there's no such thing as him really doing anything for himself at that point. Which is an Abraham. That's a good question. But it's not really a question over here. It's more like the sugyas and kedushin of Ebed V'Ama to work that through.
Is it possible we could say, like, by Bishalakam, like, we extend some of the halachas to a guy, like a worker who lives in our house? Would we also extend those halachas of Eved V'Ama here?
I mean, meaning what? That it's automatically for Yisrael? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Yossi was asking. Is there such thing as him really doing anything la'atzmo? Like sort of like we learned the Ravid, we learned the Sugya Bishalakam, we saw the Shittas Ravid was brought down as one day in Shulchan Aruch that anything that if you have an Eved V'Ama, there's also Ramban and Chedushim that in Eved Azorah that Eved V'Ama, if there was no Isra Bishalakam according to that, because it's there's no Gzeira because they're like an extension of the Jew in a way. Everything they do is really for him, and it's sort of an extension. It's not like a separate thing that you really dechasnas because it's all just like for you automatically. So there is such a swore out there, and perhaps it might apply in some way over here also as well. But and that's basically, I think, what the Ritva is saying is that Chazal, the lamdas of what in Chazal included the malacha of every goy. If they did it in Bishvil Yisrael, then it becomes like the malacha of a Jew himself, that there is like an Isra of Maisa Shabbos on it. And the word Maisa Shabbos equals some type of Isra Hana.
Well, is the Ritva concerned that you would ask the guy to do more, or it's just because of Maisa Shabbos that it's aser?
He does not go into that in that piece. So that's really where we're going to get into in the next year, is how those two things work together.
Right. Okay.
That's so I guess we'll leave this on that note. We'll sort of leave it with a question. We'll that if this is the pshat and tosis, like we're saying, like that seems to be and there's a rush that we'll talk about in the Russian in Beitza that alludes to this yisod, that the fact that there's an Isra on Noah makes it sound like that is really the yisod of the Isra, that the Chazal gave it Gidrei Isra Hana, not just a dry Gzera. However, we'll take it a step. We'll see in Rashi. If you look in the Rashi in the Mishnah, Rashi says, "In Bishvil Yisrael Aser," says Midrabanan. Now Rashi could have said Aser Shema Yivakish Menu to do more, or whatever. He could have. Rashi is very, very susam over here and just says Midrabanan. Lafuke what? I would have thought there was really an Issa Derais over here. So it sounds to me like Rashi is coming to tell us that why is it Asr for Yisrael? It's Asr, like the Asr just connotes Asr, period. Asr doesn't give you any timing. It doesn't say it's just Asr, period. So that Asr is an Isra Hana, but once it's Isra Hana, Rashi is telling us that it's Midrabanan. Rashi is alluding to what he says later on the Daf, Divrei Maschil B'chtei Sheyichamu Chanin. She saw that in the Bekiyas. Rashi says that if they heated up the merchatz for the sake of, if it's Rov Yisrael, if it's Rov Yisrael, then it's also b'chteshi. It's also till Motzei Shabbos, enough time to be able to heat up that water again. Says Rashi, Shelo yehne b'mashegdinu lahechem b'Shabbos. You shouldn't be nene from the fact that it was mischamim on Shabbos for the sake of Yisrael. So Rashi speaks out lehedya explicitly this lashon of lo yehene, shouldn't be nene. V'chen b'chol ma'aseh Shabbos nasnu chachamim shir lahamtin le'erev b'chtei sheyasu. Rashi explains that this shira b'chtei sheyasu, that if a goy does something for you on Shabbos, that it's also not only on Shabbos but after Shabbos, with the amount of time that it would take to perform that malacha, which we'll see as a machlokas. What does that mean? Does that mean doing the actual malacha, or the malacha plus the amount of time that it took to bring it to you, if it's chutz l'tchum, etc.? So there's details of that, but the overall concept of b'chtei sheyasu, Rashi says, is in order that you shouldn't be nene from what was done on Shabbos. And the way to avoid that is to wait till that amount of time to do the malacha after Shabbos, to get out of that Isser Hana. And Rashi and Beitza and Chav Daled speaks that out as well. And with the tremendous Rashi and Chav Daled and Beis and the bottom Rashi, that over there, if a goy brought you a gift, a Jew a gift, michutz l'tchum, and if it's yesh b'minu b'mechuber, if they brought, let's say, fruit that could be picked on Shabbos, and it's fresh, it looks like it was picked on Shabbos, then it's also the amount of time b'chtei sheyasu. Rashi over there says also, Kadesh shelo yehene mimulechas Yom Tov. You shouldn't be nene from what was done on Yom Tov. So it's a begetter Isser Hana. And based on this, Rashi said enough Kamina over there that, let's say you have 2 days Yom Tov in Chutz La'aretz, and the goy brought it to you on the first day. So the Isser should not be nene from what was done that day. Even if it's Yom Tov Sheni, you can eat it after B'chtei Sheyasu. Motzi Yom Tov Rishon, you'll eat it in the night of Yom Tov Sheni for the meal. If you passed enough time that it could have been done. So theoretically, even though right now it's Yom Tov still, and you couldn't have done it on this Yom Tov either, but L'maisa, you weren't nene for what was done on the first day once you waited past B'chtei Sheyasu into the second day of Yom Tov. And Rashi has a big arichos over there. It was a huge machlokas. A lot of people are cholok on him, and it's a very fascinating Rashi, the whole back and forth, the fight that he had about that, and he stuck to his guns, and he holds like, and he brought rayas from certain gonim that from Reklonimus, from Germaiza, that held like him that it's going to be mutter. Tosfos, however, has a bigger arichos over there. It's cholok on Rashi. Tosfos holds that Bishlema would be an Isser Hana like Rashi, then on Hanami, you're not nene on Motzei once you wait B'chtei Sheyasu into Yom Tov Sheni. But Tosfos says that it's not Asur Mitzad Isser Hana. It's Asur Mitzad Shema Yavakish. If you're nene from the fact that you're eating it now and you couldn't have done it yourself, so then the Maisa, if you eat it on Yom Tov Sheni, you're still getting benefit from the fact that the goy did it for Yom Tov Rishon. You can eat it on Yom Tov Sheni, something you could not have done yourself on Yom Tov Sheni. And therefore, you still might ask a goy to do something for you on Yom Tov Rishon for the sake of eating it on Yom Tov Sheni. Because it's not just Isser Hana, it's a Gzeira. So it's not, and as Bishlim, like Rashi, it's a Isser Hana and a Chanami. But it's not Isser Hana, it's a Gzeira. That you might ask him. And so even though there might be certain kulas on that it's a Gzeira, it's not really an Isser Hana, but this would be its Chumrah as well. The Chumrah is that it should be Asar even on Yom Tov Sheni, and Tosfos very strongly holds that way. So if that's the case, we have a stira in Tosfos. The Tosfos way we're learning over here by us is that it's an Isser Hana, and that's why it's Asar L'Kol. Not like the Balamor holds that it's a Gzeira, and therefore it's Asar only to the one they were gozer for, the one that it was brought for. Tosfos holds it's an Isser Hana. and therefore it should be usher to everybody, but that seems to be like Shitas Rashi, like we see with Shelo Yehene, but Tosfos over there in Beitza is coming lafuke that. Tosfos all over Shas holds not that way. Holds that it should be mutter, it should be usher Yom Tov Sheni, because it's not just this or no, it's a Gzeira. So l'chora we have a tremendous steer in Tosfos in the yisod of being nana from Masha Asa Bishvil Yisrael. So we'll leave that, Mr. Shem, for next time. Try to get into, but some food for thought. You can see the other Mamakomos will send out more things to see. It's Hashem, and hopefully we'll be able to come back and try to answer this year in Tosus. Okay.
Thank you.
Shkoyach, thank you.
Hey, have a good Shabbos.
Happy
Shabbos.
Shabbos. And
Shabbos.
Mazel Tov and finishing the last thing, and Mazel Tov and starting a new Chelik of Torah. Have a good Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.